Hi, I'm Lucy. Welcome to my knitting corner where I am learning to hand knit lasting and meaningful garments for my wardrobe. Today we're going to be talking about the Nordic Tote. This is a felted tote bag. The pattern is written by Mathilda Andersson. And we are going to do a deep dive into my knitting journal and my experience knitting the pattern. This is a project that I mentioned in my last video. I weaved in the ends last night. And today we're going to be going through the felting process together. First things first, I invite you to get your favorite cozy drink. I have a little bit of cinnamon cayenne pour over here. Get comfortable, get relaxed. We want this to be an enjoyable experience. So my show and tell piece today is sitting with me here. This is my Russian nesting doll, gifted to me by my Nana. She has one that is very similar to this, and I picked it up and was just in awe over it and told her how much I loved the metallic paint and the wood burning details. She actually ended up going out and finding a very similar one at an art fair and buying it and gifting it to me. So this is my very precious Russian nesting doll from my Nana. And I think it's very fitting for the topic today because this Russian nesting doll shrinks as you open it. And we are also going to be felting and shrinking a tote bag today. I have my knitting notebook here. We're going to open this up to my Nordic tote bag. Looks like I started this project March 29th of 2026. I will say this project was sort of on the back burner for me for a really long time, just because I had more exciting things for me in the moment on the needles. I did end up knitting the gauge swatch and I test felted it as well. This is my little test swatch. It's a bit different when you're actually felting a larger object, but this went fairly well. I will say I think I probably could have felted this a little bit longer. I can still see a little bit of definition in the stitches. I used Drop Snow, which is 100% wool, and the colorway 118 or dark grape. I thought this was such a lovely color. I used 8mm 100 centimeter circular needles. A couple of important techniques that you're going to be working with in this pattern are felting, working through the back loop, so knitting through the back loop, Italian bind off, Kitchener stitch. Now onto my personal experience knitting this. I ended up having a couple of moments where I needed to frog back. The first one was I guess I miscounted the amount of stitches that I had on my short side on the first one, so I had to frog that and rework it. Another time this happened was on the first strap that I was working. I ended up not fully comprehending the pattern for the strap the first time around. I gave it a shot, but ended up messing up somehow, so I ended up having to frog that and then work it back again. Essentially, you're working a tube when you're working on the straps, which I'd never done before, so it was a little bit of trial and error there, but ended up working that out in the end. My only other hiccup that I ran into was the Kitchener stitch at the end. I don't typically love stitches that require you to go in and like sew or use a needle to weave at the end, but I do recognize that sometimes they are necessary. And again, once I got the hang of it, it ended up being a breeze. Those are my notes and my personal experience on the pattern. I'll show a little clip here of my Nordic tote bag complete, like the whole knitted project. This bag works up to be pretty large because during the felting process you end up shrinking it. I actually picked up a secondhand felted knits book a while back just because I wanted to read up on the process and figure out exactly to do what I'm doing and how to do it properly before I actually venture into the world of felting. So this is Felted Knits by Beaverly Galeskas or Galeskas. I really love this kind of like analog educational system because what I'm finding is this book is so comprehensive. It has abbreviations and stitches and techniques and all kinds of things in here. It has patterns, it has detailed advice on how to properly felt your knits and everything you could be looking for in the realm of felted knits. And that's something that I just love about traditional education and analog education is you get a more comprehensive guide typically than what you find in most digital places these days. So I'm going to kind of reference this book because I think it's very relevant. So I'm focusing on these 2 pages here called Controlling the Felting in the Washing Machine, and then there's a little note about felting by hand. I'm going to take a longer pause to read this a little bit more in depth on my own, and I'll provide you guys with a little snapshot of what I'm reading. Three things that are standing out to me as I'm reading this. The larger the item, the faster it will felt. Temperature and water levels are important in relation to agitation. And then finally, checking it every 5 minutes so that it doesn't overprocess or buckle. I'll take you guys into the laundry room and we'll get this started. Now that I have finished felting this tote bag, a couple of notes post-felting process. I did have to go back in and adjust the settings a few times, like the temperature and the cycle. I started out on warm, regular, and ended up adjusting throughout to hot water and heavy cycle. I did throw in a little hand towel to add a little extra agitation as well, and after a few rounds of 5 minutes checking on it, I ended up getting to a place of contentment. I will say I did have to take it out and stretch it to make sure that it was felting in the right shape a couple of times. And at the end, I just pressed it with a towel and filled it with some towels as well so that it would hold its shape as it dries. And overall, I think it was a pretty successful mission. This is the finished object. Now, obviously, it's still a little bit damp and a little bit floppy, so I'm going to make sure that I stuff this and block it out properly so that it is able to hold its shape. But overall, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I love that I'm able to toss it over my shoulder like this. This is perfect. I do plan to add a little magnetic closure to the side just to be able to keep it closed. Thank you for visiting my knitting corner again, and I will see you guys next time.
A feeling strewn across the street.